All right. Blasting off. Let the people know. Let your friends know. Let your foes know. Let the enemies in too. Fuck it. YOLO. You know, we're letting everybody know today. One of those days, a big one. This dog officially destroys bully sticks. Like, there was a point in time when I would get her a bully stick and it would take like a whole ass day for her to go through it. Now it takes her literally approximately 5 to 10 minutes. It's been a while since you've asked to invite our enemies into this home. Yeah, because I'm going to be glazing up Trump today. Well, not necessarily glazing him up, but like talking about how devastatingly bad the Brandon situation looks right now as like polls show Joseph Robinette Biden and Donald John Trump neck and neck, and with Trump actually winning him out, especially with the way that the Electoral College is designed. Brandon has to win the popular vote by like 3 to 5%. You know what I mean? Like year over year, things get worse and worse. Have you tried elk antlers? My insane chewer dog is able to make them last longer than bully sticks with no smell. Yeah, I have some right here. Are you dating Dr. Pepper? I heard rumors you were seen together at the Super Bowl halftime show sponsored by Pepsi. Okay, the Super Bowl halftime show wasn't just sponsored by Pepsi. It was also Pepsi was the person who was also performing on the Super Bowl halftime show. You know what I mean? Listen, I'm Diet Do, baby. I do what I do. Yeah, it's called the Pepsi halftime show for a reason. Pepsi sings at it. Really good Univision polls showed today that Hispanic support for Trump is collapsing back to 2016 levels, undoing all the Republican gains of the last decade. Why? They cite the January 6th indictments, just saying the national everyone polls are a bit shit this year so far. Also, 1 year out, so all polls are trash. Yes, polls, for those of you who don't understand, as much as I love poll watching and making broad sweeping generalizations, polls are supposed to be a snapshot of this time right now. We are so far away from the actual election that making any assessments at this point is, of course, going to be ridiculous. You can only look to what is happening right now and why the approval ratings are the way that they are. That's what it's good for. To look at right now, in this very moment, what's happening, why is Brandon not as popular, and why is Trump gaining popularity? That's the only thing you can look at. It's just a vibe check. All right, I'm gonna do another big blast on this. Okay, like I said, Canada's Nazi controversy. UAW strikes continue. WGA gets a deal. Biden v. Trump looks bad for Trump. Wait, did I say Biden v. Trump looks bad for Trump? I don't know why I wrote it like that. Looks bad for Biden. I fucked it up. I just realized. Oops. No, I already can edit it. I just edited it. It's fine. Sorry, I forgot to link the Tommy Robinson rant. I don't care about Tommy Robinson. Oh God, he looks like shit. Polls are also built in a model of likely voters, which is a huge source of error and ignores local issues like abortion amendments. I am interested in seeing. I'm interested in seeing what happens with the Brandon Bidenomics shit, okay? Because like Biden taking probably one of the weakest elements of his administration and making that his most prominent one is kind of odd, because like he isn't necessarily all too bad on the labor protection side, but he also hasn't really done enough on that front. And a lot of the benefits that come from that are not going to be seen for a couple of years. So it's odd for him to hit that button when like the gas prices fluctuate, inflation is still pretty high. Even if inflation wasn't high, it's hard for people to immediately come to terms with the economy. It's like very vibes based. And Americans are historically looking at the economy and going, nah, this sucks. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. So it's very strange opinion. It's a very strange thing that Biden has done so far. And I don't know. We'll see how it pans out. But before we get to Brandon and the American economy and all this other stuff, okay, let's talk about Canada. Oh, Canada. Now, Canada watchers already know that there's like a big Ukrainian diaspora in Canada that has been like very openly contentious with, or very openly celebrating, Bandera, Nazis, Nazi collaborators and whatnot. There's like a lot of people that live in Canada, or historically speaking, like they're very, very openly anti-communist and have been able to kind of get away with being anti-communist as like Ukrainians, and have people not really question, like, wait a minute, like you're Ukrainian, but you're anti-communist, you're anti-USSR. That's fine. Okay. But like from what time period exactly? Like, what do you mean you're anti-USSR Ukrainians? What does that mean? Now, does this mean that there are plenty of anti-USSR people in Ukraine right now? Of course. But if you, I don't know, immigrated into Ukraine, like in and around like 1948 and onward, right? And you are openly anti-USSR, and you just kind of kept that energy, like it gets a little weird, okay? Like what's going on there? Like what do you mean you fought in World War II? Oh, did I say immigrated into Ukraine? I meant immigrated into Canada. What's going on there? Like what's happening? Well, what's happening is something that we've talked about a lot, and people actually do get very mad whenever I cover this. But like I've talked about the national interests, or the nation building interests of Ukrainians being unfortunately tied to some less than savory individuals, historically, individuals that facilitated in the pogroms, and also sided with the Nazis while doing so, because they thought maybe, fuck the Red Army, fuck the USSR, maybe we'll be able to carve out our own nation state outside of the USSR, outside of, outside of that. And of course, a part of that was also taking Jewish Ukrainians and throwing them in camps and killing them. Same with Polish individuals as well. So there is that history, there are plenty of countries in that region that have similar complicated histories, of course. And of course, our boy in Canada, this man, Yaroslav Hunka, got a standing ovation in Congress, in the Canadian Congress the other day, and everyone was like, "Wait a minute, what's going on?" So let's take a look at what happened.
The federal liberals under attack from opposition parties and Jewish groups after a Ukrainian veteran who served in a Nazi military unit in...
So first of all, they didn't present it as such. They did not say, yeah, Parliament, whatever, not Congress. Who cares? Shut up. Nobody cares about your fake country, okay? Go celebrate more Nazis, okay? In America, we don't do that. Just kidding. We, of course, do that in America, too. But this is such a funny thing to happen in Canada, because they're like they love the aesthetics of liberalism so much that even their conservatives love the aesthetics of liberalism. There is a lot of things that I want to mention here with this man, okay? So when this first came out, when this news story first came out, they presented it as a patriotic Ukrainian who fought against Russia in World War II. That is how they covered it, okay? I just want you to understand something. This is a much more important part of the story, in my opinion, than like the actual story now. Once everybody realized like that means he was a Nazi, they covered it. They said he served in the Ukrainian army against the Russians during World War II. Now that that is, of course, a very interesting way to frame someone. Hopefully, I guess with the secondary assumption that you know that other people are not going to question it and they're going to think like, oh no, USSR is bad, Russia is bad, obviously, right? Yeah, except regardless of what your position is on Stalin or communism in general or Marxism, Lenin, any of that shit, okay? There's one thing that the Western world is united on. Even the fucking Germans, as a matter of fact. And that is that Nazis were bad. Okay? Nazis were bad. So if you were fighting against the Nazis, you were good in that particular moment. And the USSR happened to be very good at killing Nazis, and specifically Ukrainians that were also a part of the army of the USSR were very good at killing Nazis and also died a lot. Like a lot of people in Ukraine died as a consequence of, fighting against the Nazis. Now, of course, on the other side, there were Ukrainians who did not want to fight alongside the USSR against the Nazis and thought maybe we could use this as an opportunity to carve out our own nation state of Ukraine that is totally removed of the USSR and communist scourge. They were anti-communists, and they of course worked with the Nazis. This is significantly more important than just the Azov Battalion. For those of you who think like, oh, Azov Battalion still is in operation, that is not all that significant. The Azov Battalion is unimportant in the grand scheme of things when I'm talking about like the development of a nationalist movement in Ukraine and its historical formation. That part is significantly more important than just like simply Azov Battalion or a marginal percentage of like open out and about Nazis that fight alongside the Ukrainian forces. This is more so a more holistic issue. Okay? So anyway, here it is. Here is the news story. Originally, they said that, 7 million Ukrainians served in the Red Army, and Ukrainians made up many leadership positions in the Red Army. Of course, do you think it could be miscommunication, or is homie an actual Nazi vet? Oh, no. He is not just any kind of Nazi vet. He is a part of the SS. So, like, this guy is like this is the type of dude that you like execute still. You know what I mean? No, he's like super duper Nazi. He is the guy. Like, he is literally the type of guy that normally would have been, he would have been like tried and executed, or like years later he dies and then like people celebrate his death. You know what I mean? Like it happened like a couple months back. There was like some fucking 98-year-old dipshit Nazi who like passed away and everyone was celebrating it, right? Like it's that type of dude. So it's interesting to think about that, because specifically, this is not about like being pro-USSR or being pro-communism, being pro-Marxism, being pro-socialism at all. This is more so like being anti-Nazi. And for a very long time, at least like some of the older Ukrainian diaspora in Canada has kind of really pushed up the pushed this narrative of like, we were trying to just build a nation state, and it's totally valid, and they've gotten a lot of clout. So let's watch what happened here.
Wasn't just invited to hear Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky speak in Parliament on Friday, but received a standing ovation from all sides of the House of Commons.
So what's really funny about this, by the way, is that like now, of course, the conservatives are fucking attacking Justin Trudeau and being like, typical Justin Trudeau, who did blackface, by the way. Remember when he did blackface? And it's like, bitch, you were there. Like every single one of the conservatives in the Canadian Parliament were giving this Nazi a standing ovation. I'm sorry. You can't fucking sit there and be like, oh, I can't believe that this is classic Justin Trudeau mishap. It's like, bro, we saw you on camera. Like, you were also on fucking camera. Yeah, I mean, there's an entire Wikipedia segment dedicated to memorials in Canada, to Nazi and Nazi collaborators. a lot of these are from like, you know, a lot of these come from the Ukrainian diaspora. That's what I was talking about. Yeah. I mean, on the other side, on a less talked about thing that happens as well, because there is not a lot of interest in the Western world. Like, I mean, this shit is like, this is a constant. Okay, the anti-communist sentiment is so powerful that you can really get away with like being pro-Nazi for a very long time, as long as you just say, no, I'm not a Nazi. I'm just like anti-communist. I'm just anti-communist. Even though the time when you were anti-communist was the time when you were pro-Nazi. So that's also something to consider. I mean, it happens all around. Like, I mean, in Japan, they literally dedicated a monument to the Taiwanese forces that fought alongside them. I'm pretty sure. Like, there was a very small marginal units that fought alongside Japan, and they literally just dedicated a monument to that, which was insane to me. It's like dedicating a monument to fucking Ukrainian Nazis right now in Germany. You know what I mean? Like, they did that. They did that recently. Oh, sorry. In Taiwan, they dedicated the memorial to Taiwanese teens that fought for Japan. Oh, I thought it was in Japan. I thought they built it in Japan, not in Taiwan. Japan has a lot of problematic pro-imperial Japan museums too. Yes, but have you noticed that they're very cool? Because like the Imperial Japan, albeit brutal, and did a fuck ton of war crimes that surprisingly never get covered. Very odd, for the record. Like, very interesting that the anti-Chinese, like Manchurian genocidal aspects of like Japanese colonialism in World War II, leading up to the World War II and during World War II, is just like totally a secondary note that nobody ever talks about, really. Very interesting. Anyway, the Ukrainian volunteers on the Waffen SS were those. Yeah, it's the Galician one, which is a volunteer unit. They're not even like conscripted or anything. They volunteered to sign up after the invasion of the Nazis and knowingly signed up to massacre Jews, communists, and undesirable Slavic groups. They weren't ideologically different or nationalist Ukrainians. They were dedicated fascists who killed women and children. This dude in particular described his experience with the Waffen SS as the happiest time of my life. Which is pretty cool to just like... It was just like the foreign... It was the Nazi foreign brigade. Okay, like it was the SS unit for foreigners, and you know, it's good to know. It's good to learn about history. It's good to learn about history because I think like you know, maybe everyone in the Canadian Parliament should learn about history. I think. I know it's not Trudeau's fault, but no, it is Trudeau's fault. It is. I'm sorry to say this, but this is absolutely 100%. 1,000,000% the entire Canadian government's fault for just being so horny to be anti-communist that you end up propping up Nazis, which is not a shocker if you are even a little intelligent about American history or global history in general, World War II history in general. If you're like even a little bit aware of what the fuck was going on during that time period, then you personally understand, like, wait a minute, this guy was fucking anti-Russian during World War II? Who the fuck, whose side was he on then? It's not that complicated. It doesn't matter. There's no way this was an accident either. No, it's not. I think the only accident is that they probably thought, I think that the only accident was, I guess they thought that, like, everyone is so horny against, like, Russia and the USSR and anti-communist that like no one will really think twice about what the fuck is going on here. But yeah, these are the photos of the SS Galicia Division veteran who was given a standing ovation by the Canadian Parliament, Prime Minister of Canada, and President of Ukraine. He published these photos himself in this division during training in Germany. He is standing in the middle of the first photo, second to the left photo without a helmet near a machine gun in the third photo. He wrote he volunteered to join the SS Galicia Division in 1943 in Ternopil region in western Ukraine. My peer-reviewed journal article concerning involvement in SS Galicia Division members in mass murder of Poles, Jews, Ukrainians in Ukraine and Poland, including mass executions about 100 Jews, Poles, and Ukrainians in my high school in Pitatsky near Lutsk. And according to the CBC, a top commander of the Nazi SS-led unit accused of burning villages filled with women and children lied to the American immigration officials to get into the United States and has been living in Minnesota since shortly after Second World War. According to the evidence uncovered by the Associated Press, officer and founding member of the SS-led Ukrainian Self-Defense Legion and later as an officer in the SS Galician Division, according to records obtained by the AP through a FOIA request, the Galician Division and the Ukrainian Nationalist Organization he served were both a secret American government blacklist of organizations whose members were forbidden from entering the United States at the time.
Ukrainian.
Here's the SS Galicia Division veteran.
Canadian.
Here's how they presented him. Oh, yeah, the deputy prime minister's, has Nazi grandparents, by the way. Yes, we've talked about this before as well. Anytime I talk about it, though, everybody yells at me and says, Hassan, what's your suggestion? Like, don't support Ukraine? It's like, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. But, like, don't support Nazis is, I think, a pretty basic fucking concept across the board. So, So just like just a reminder for everybody, yes, Chrystia Freeland, the deputy prime minister, has literal fucking Nazi collaboration as grandparents, who she also has defended time and time again. I've talked about it time and time again. It basically doesn't even fucking matter. No one gives a shit because you can just kind of like deafen the conversation. Notice how the conversation on the Nazi shit doesn't even revolve around, doesn't necessarily revolve around like like every single person in Ukrainian parliament not really having any kind of issue with this and having like an open affinity in certain instances towards like anti-USSR Nazi collaborators and direct Nazis, and instead like, oh, what a mishap by Justin Trudeau, because the only time people even fucking talk about this issue is when they're talking about this issue from the perspective of like, back and forth, silly ass political conversations. They're like, oh, this looks bad for Justin Trudeau. It's not just that it looks bad for Justin Trudeau. It is a more spiritual problem in the West, and how horny they are against socialism, communism, whatever demonstration of that like they literally openly will defend Nazis and prop up Nazis. Here's how this guy, who was very Googleable at the time, here's how he was presented in Parliament.
We have here in the chamber today Ukrainian Canadian world veteran from the Second World War who fought the Ukrainian independence against the Russians.
Like, I'm not a particularly smart person, okay? I'm a very simple guy. I'm a very simple guy with a very simple brain, okay? I know that at the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break. I know you don't have to see those ads, and you can avoid them by subscribing for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime, or by getting gifted a sub. Here's the 3-minute ad break now. There's a couple things I know, okay? One of those things I know is if you are a veteran during World War II and you fought against Russia, well, then there's not that many sides involved in that situation. The Russians were allies of ours during World War II. I feel like we have gotten so brain broken in the West, and it's that famous French study I show you guys all the time where, like, in the immediate aftermath of World War II, when French people were asked, like, who shouldered the greatest burden during World War II, 75% of Frenchmen said, the USSR did, the Russians did, and then like now when you go back and look at it, like half of a century later, and it's entirely, everyone says America. That was deliberate propaganda. Okay, Russia switched side. It's not that simple, brother. That is such a dumb fucking take. You read one Wikipedia article about Molotov-Ribbentrop or whatever the fuck the other dude's name is, and you literally ran with that, not thinking about any other thing. Like, the most formative parts of World War II are not leading up to World War II. It's how World War II happened and who won, okay, and who lost. It's ridiculous. Like, you think You think this guy was like, oh man, thank God. Like, this is no different than you know the energy of this? The energy of this is the fucking Republicans being like, I don't know if you know this, but Abraham Lincoln, he was a Republican. Like, that's the same shit you're doing when you do this, okay? Oh, really? That's so crazy. I can't believe there was a non-aggression pact that was put forward. I wonder what happened after. Probably nothing, right? Oh, that's right. World War II happened. So that was kind of more important, I think, than the non-aggression pact originally. It's like thinking that it's like looking at like pre-Churchill England and being like, well, they were doing appeasement, so they were pro-Hitler. Yeah. We'll prop up not just Nazis, but fascists in general to stop leftist economic governments. Just look at what we do in Latin America. I mean, sure. It's hard to think of them as allies since they went to my country after the war and didn't leave for 40 fucking years. I mean, this is like the other major reason, but you're not Canadian. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people in Eastern Europe also have deep anti-communist sentiment, anti-USSR sentiment, and that's one thing, right? But like, if you're in fucking Canada, it's the same energy as like a dude in Ohio rocking the Confederate flag. At that point, you have no historical reference point. You got no skin in the game. You have no historical reference point. You're just riding for it for the fuck of it. Okay? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, you have no direct involvement. You just literally are just saying, nah, man, you don't understand. Them Nazis, those were our boys, brother. It's just so stupid. Oh, it's so funny to be like, yeah, you know, I love their heritage, not hate, brother. It's heritage, not hate, but their heritage is what I love. It's like, well, except Ohio was like one of the most notable underground railroad states. No, that's exactly the reason why I used Ohio as an example. When you see Confederate flags in Ohio, it's like, what are you doing? Like, you were on the other side of this. You were the most anti-Confederate. Why the fuck are you culturally appropriating racism like that, you fucking idiot? Okay? That's the reason why I used Ohio as an example. Or, I mean, sure, fuck it. Let's use Canada as an example. Like, you have no dog in the fight on either direction, and you still have a Confederate flag. Like, what's happening there? You know what I mean? Like, how delusional do you get? It's awesome. Kentucky State in the Union, they have Confederate flags now too. Missouri too. They might not be racist. You're stereotyping. Wait, what? Are you in here literally defending riding the fucking Confederate flag? Like, no, it means you're racist. Like, 100%. The only reason why people don't make that distinction, that there would be no distinction for the swastika, the only reason for the Confederacy to not have that distinction is because they got fucking owned even harder than the Nazis. That's number one. And number two, literally, as soon as it was over, they packed it up and were like, we are going to do a full-scale propaganda misinformation war. The Daughters of the Confederacy, instead of fucking churning butter at home like the good girls they were supposed to be, instead fucking, rolled their sleeves up and went in to fucking propagandize the Southern position and were able to actively undermine historic, like the actual history and rewrite it in a way to make it seem like the South was actually trying to preserve their heritage and not necessarily defend their material interests in the form of slavery. Okay? So yes, any symbolism that points to that in the United States of America is a symbol that is allowed to exist beyond just like straight up, I'm probably more core dem than you. What? I don't give a shit what you think you are, weirdo. What the fuck? Is it core dem? What is a core dem? He's like, listen, brother, I'm a real Democrat. You're not. And what are you, a real Democrat from the fucking, are you a Dixiecrat? Is this like 1984 and you're a Dixiecrat? What's happening here? My man said, I'm a core Democrat. You know? Like, what's happening? Is that what's going on? You're a core Dixiecrat still? Like, he's holding on. He's the one Japanese guy in the island that's like, no, I don't give a fuck that World War II ended. You know what I mean? I'm still holding this territory. I'm holding it down, brother. It's real for me. And he's the one Dixiecrat in 2023. He's like, no, you don't get it, brother. Henry Cuellar, he's my one guy that I like, even though he's Mexican. It's just me and Henry, man. We're just holding it down, baby. Oh, just so good. Anyway, the only reason why I would be a little bit more understanding of the differences between a swastika and the Confederate flag is exclusively because, like, there was no de-Stalinization or denazification in the South, unfortunately. If anything, they, like, completely blew up the fucking Reconstruction Project and reinforced that exact same racial hierarchy, and it was a major issue. That is the reason why we still have these racial wounds in this country that we haven't been able to address. They didn't go hard enough. The North did not go hard enough. 100%. Never forget that. Anyway, let's continue.
And continues to support the troops today, even at his age of 98.
I can't. I gotta run it back. It's just funny because, like, we shit on, like, kick streamers or whatever for, like, doing Nazi celebrations and whatnot. Meanwhile, you got, like, lib-ass Canadians in fucking Parliament that woke up that morning and put on their frock and their high collar, signifying status, and this, like, stupid-ass fucking bow tie or whatever. It kind of goes hard, I'm not gonna lie, actually. And dressed up to be like, all right, today we are going to do Nazi apologia, don't you know? Yeah, that's right. I love this guy. He fought against the Russians in World War II. Don't think about it any further than that.
Here in the chamber today, Ukrainian Canadian world veteran from the Second World War who fought the Ukrainian independence against the Russians and
like after that pause, you should have just, like, stopped and reconsidered what you just read. You know what I mean? Like, what? Wait a minute. What? Fought against the Russians during World War II? We were fighting against someone else during World War. We were allied during World War II with the USSR, I think.
Continues to support the troops today, even at his age of 98.
We can give the benefit of the doubt to Trudeau since he doesn't have to know Ukraine's history, but what about Zelensky himself? How come he applauded him too? He's the president and he must have known and reacted immediately. Zelensky knowingly saluted a Nazi? Bro, I don't think Zelensky gives a fuck about anything. He just wants the money and the weapons, okay? He will salute and celebrate whoever the fuck they trot up, okay? And he personally doesn't give a shit either. Like, I'm sorry. Like, there's no, at this point, especially post-invasion, there's no, you know, it's out of control. It's not going to happen. No one knew about the guy being there. That's really interesting that you just said that. No one knew about the guy being there. So notice how in Parliament, okay, the speaker just announced him as, like, we just watched it. This is the reason why I wanted to fucking show you something, okay? I wanted to show you something to see, like, if people could exercise critical thinking in that moment, okay? No one except the speaker. Brother, do you not hear the words that are coming out of his mouth? Here's what I don't fucking understand. Here's what I understand. How are you still defending this? He literally says he fought against Russia in World War II. Like, I know this is his own district, right? Like, the veteran lives in his, the fucking Nazi lives in his district and he, like, doesn't give a shit. And he loves it, whatever. Okay? That part, like, I understand him bringing the fucking Nazi. I'm trying to explain to you why Canadians don't give a fuck about that kind of thing anyway. It's an ongoing issue. Make no mistake, this also ties directly into like the Black Book and the anti-communist, like victims of communism memorials. Half of the fucking time, it's not an accident that like the victims of communism memorials also have literal Nazis and their names on those memorials. I wonder why. Like, it's not. It's directly antagonistic. Communism and Nazism fought, okay? Communist forces, the USSR, they fought against Nazis, okay? They did that. That's just history. Anyway, so my point is this. This guy doesn't have a district. He isn't elected. You said it's in his writing or whatever the fuck. Like, listen. There are major Ukrainian diasporas in Canada that live all over Canada that are like they're a constituency. And in a lot of those places, they have like these monuments that I'm talking about. Okay? I already talked about Chrystia Freeland as well. Yes. And it's not something that is new or unique. Okay? It's not new, it's not unique. This is, Dan Beckner has talked a lot about this. Shouts out to Dan, shouts out to the Chapo boys, like, but it's something that has been ongoing for a very long time. And the only reason why people don't really think about it is because they are anti-communist. They're like portrayed as anti-communists. They kind of hide under the banner of anti-communism, anti-socialism, and also anti-USSR. So that's precisely the reason why they've been able to like kind of get away with it, because people just don't give a shit. Okay, people don't care. They're like, oh, that's my enemy. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, except he was my enemy as well. Now, I don't know why people don't understand what I am mentioning here is like ridiculous. I don't know. I guess you're like deliberately obtuse or something if you're trying to defend this, because as soon as he introduces the person, okay, as soon as he introduces this person as a veteran from World War II that fought against Russia, everyone should go, what the fuck? When I first heard about it, I went, what the fuck? And this is very scary, okay? This is how you get to this shit. Like, this kind of attitude is not designed in a vacuum. No, the communists were worse, and that's a hard contest to win. Like, the idea that, like, communism is worse than Nazis should be considered, like, the most insane thing to say, okay? This should be the most insane thing. Like, people should be ashamed to have this kind of take, okay? At that point, you are not a centrist. You're just a Nazi. Like, Ukrainian Canadians used to be super left-wing in Canada, so it became Canadian policy to import Ukrainian anti-communists, i.e. Nazis, to suppress the left. Many were brought to Canada with the specific hope of smashing union organizing in Canada. That's why the leadership of the Ukrainian diaspora went from being very left-wing in the early days to fascist apologists today. At a certain point, is it not Holocaust revisionism? It doesn't matter. It's the same energy as here. Okay. It's the same energy as like being deeply anti-Semitic but pro-Israel. Like, they will let you get away with it a little bit in mainstream media. You know what I mean? Like, Ben Shapiro will defend you if you are a rigid anti-Semite and say anti-Semitic things. As long as you're pro-Israel, Ben Shapiro will defend you. He has done so in the past. He did it for Ann Coulter. And it's the same thing. Like, you can do a little bit of Holocaust revisionism or Holocaust denial as long as you're so expressly anti-communist that is the major point of contention there. Okay? Like, everyone hyper-focuses on the anti-communism aspect and forgets that, like, the people that were anti-fucking communists in many instances, perhaps nearly in all of the instances throughout history, have been, like, very reactionary and fascist people, okay? but it's hilarious considering that, like, this is the one thing that even liberals understand. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, this is the one thing that liberals understand. And it's like, oh shit, we just applauded a fucking Nazi is not going to look good. Like, the broader majority, the normies who are not as like tuned into what's going on in Ukrainian politics or whatever, even they will look to this and go, oh my God, they brought a fucking literal Nazi veteran to parliament and gave him a standing ovation. There's no salvaging that at that point. Okay?
The Ukrainian independence against the Russians and continues to support the troops today, even at his age of 98.
Yeah. Look at that. Every single member of parliament, dude, every single one got up and celebrated a fucking literal Nazi. That's awesome. It's like, at that moment, at the brittle age of 98, I suspect that he thought, you know what? We might have lost the battle, but I think we might be winning the war. You know? One of those moments where you're like, I thought we had lost the battle and the war, but it turns out maybe we are winning the war. He's 98. He ain't going to do shit now. Lol, Canada is so dumb. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's the fucking aesthetic. It's the principle behind it, too.
His name is Yaroslav Hunka.
Do you not make a distinction between those fighting for Ukrainian liberation from the USSR and those Ukrainians who were actual Nazis? Wait, what? Bro, there is no fucking way to defend this. I hope you're not trying to, right? I mean, the man that they're talking about is quite literally a volunteer Nazi. That's the lib take on Twitter. There's no, like, Wehrmacht defense here, okay? Like, there's no Nazi adjacency, especially for him. Yeah, this is the fun, especially when you consider that significantly more Ukrainians fought for the Soviet Union against the Nazis. Like, so many of them fucking died. Like, this dude was literally in the foreigner brigade of the SS, and you're like, well, it seems like this guy whose unit was accused of war crimes, understandably, who killed, like, Ukrainian Jews and many Polish people and shit, like, maybe he just wanted independence. That's sick, man. That's nice. Bro, have you considered how it feels if you're just desperate to maintain a secure homeland for your white Ukrainian children? Okay, that's 15 words, okay? And it's not 14. So it's very different in that situation. Insane take defending this. He was literally fighting against his own country. How can he be patriotic? I would like to point out, however, that being a Ukrainian member of the SS was not the same thing as being a German member of the SS. Germans put the people of Eastern Europe into often impossible situations. Collaboration could be a survival strategy. It's important. Oh, dude, cut a liberal and a fascist bleeds has never been a more prescient fucking take. Oh, it's so good. These are the people who, like, the hilarious part about this is that these are, like, the very same types of people, like the very same types of people who are like, oh, did you go on the Joe Rogan Experience? That must mean you're a fascist. Okay? Or the very same type of people who will turn around and be like, wow, defending China much? You would be defending the Nazis. And it's like, man, that is such a wild fucking take from you, considering that, like half the time, these people just want to fucking defend certain ideas rather than really examine the historical context. You know what I mean? This person went and examined the historical context and said, nah, fuck it. Now, listen, here's why this is an insane take, okay? Saying That being a Ukrainian member of the SS is not the same thing as being a German member of the SS. German put people of Eastern Europe into often impossible situations. Hello? There were so many fucking Ukrainians that were fighting against the Nazis. Like, this guy made the deliberate choice to remember this. Nonetheless, it is a disservice to Ukrainians to honor Ukrainian veterans of the SS, not at least because the vast majority of Ukrainians were victims of the Second World War and many died fighting Nazi Germany and the Soviet Army. Okay, well then that's fucking nuts. Like, you can't follow this up with this, okay? Like, even if you're fucking, one of those guys who's like super invested in the NATO stuff, even if you're super invested in the NATO stuff, right? Like, this gives a major fucking propaganda talking point to Vladimir Putin that, like, the Russian media will just, ass fuck into oblivion, okay? Like, I make no mistake, I have never for a single fucking moment believed that, like, Russians are denazifying Ukraine. Like, I've said that that's bullshit from the jump, okay? If anything, they are literally Nazifying Ukraine instead of denazifying it, because people, when their fucking houses are on fire and their roads are being bombed with artillery shells, end up having very reactionary perspectives and will maybe find themselves in a much more nationalistic position, much more reactionary position, something that I've said since day one, okay? So there is no denazification of Ukraine happening, and it's never happened. I've said it many, many times over. Also, the people that are supposedly denazifying Ukraine, some of those forces are also Nazis themselves. There's Nazis on fucking both sides. Wonderful stuff happening in Eastern Europe. But having said that, when you do stuff like this, you do end up allowing Vladimir Putin to cut these fucking idiotic, silly propaganda talking points. That's it. I had to split hairs, but it's only Nazi if it's from the Schutzstaffel region of Germany. Otherwise, it's just sparkling fascist collaboration. House of Commons Speaker relieved Japanese veteran who fought against China couldn't make it. Even if he had turned up, it would have been like that other guy, he explained. My aide said he wasn't even a soldier. He was a doctor for some generic unit. Unit number 713 or 731 or something. I mean, that's a joke, chat. Don't take that seriously. But it is a very funny parallel to be like, yeah, he was a doctor. Also, he was given an opportunity he was a doctor and also never criminally charged. So technically no wrongdoing. You know what I mean? He did everything right and they didn't indict him. The other funny part about this is that, who else is going to cut so much propaganda off this? I feel like India. Okay? That's the other part of it. Like, just last week, Canada was like, wow, it's really fucked up that you assassinated a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil, India. Like, dude, if I'm Indian on this day, I am fucking going nutty. I'm like, wow, talking a big fucking game, Canada. Talking a big game. Are you sheltering more people? Hey, Canada, have you thought about not sheltering people against foreign governments? I'd be using this non-fucking stop. Indians love Hitler. Doesn't matter. In this very moment, first of all, that's a ridiculous thing to say about fucking one of the most populous nations on the planet. Even though there is truth to certain nationalist aspects of Indian politics, but it is still funny. It is still funny because, like, oh my god, dude, all the worst motherfuckers, all the biggest hogs, globally, all the way from Russian pushing Z hogs to the Indian nationalist hogs are running the gamut. Follow up on the India versus Canada drama for later. The largest Indian news network, Republic TV, Indian equivalent of Newsmax, threatens to nuke Canada. What?
ये नहीं कि बीच में खत्म कर मिस्टर ट्रूडो तुम क्या हो आज हमारी
Indian TV threatening Trudeau with a nuclear attack on Canada. These morons don't know that India's atomic energy program has started with a Canadian reactor. Guess what, dude? They got the nukes now, so suck my dick. You know what I mean? Oh, the best part. We didn't even get to the best part. God, there's so much. Like, it almost feels like deliberate. You know how we've talked about before where, like, I know not every single fucking person that is in Ukraine fighting against Russia is a fucking Nazi. I know that. That's a ridiculous thing to say. Right? But if you look at Associated Press, it's very hard to not make that assessment because it somehow always feels like they are literally deliberately taking photos of soldiers that just have like the black sun, like a black sun tattoo, always. And it's so fucked up. And this is the same energy. It's like, what did you do? There are so many Ukrainian veterans that did not fucking fight alongside the Nazis and fought against the Nazis. And you went and you propped up the one fucking veteran, dog. That's insane. It's just so, it's so stupid. Like, what are you doing? Like, are you doing this deliberately? Are you just trying to be like, are you trying to, like, they'll interview a guy who's like training the civilian protection corps or whatever. And the guy's name is literally like Adolf. And his name is not fucking Adolf. He's like, yeah, this is the guy, codename Adolf. That's not even a joke. That's real, by the way. That literally happened. I'm not even joking about that. That actually happened. They'll be like, yeah, his code name is Adolf. This is the 1488 Brigade of the SS Regiment. Like, what? There's nothing wrong with that. Chill out. Fuck. Anyway. So, further... It's just like, it's right there. It's just right there. It's right there. Ah! Oh, Jesus Christ. They didn't even look at the Wikipedia page. Like, dude, they made it easy for you. You know what I mean? Like, they have the colors and the flag and everything. You know what I mean? What was this guy doing? Oh, shit. Oh, fuck. Oh, never mind. Wait, years of service. 1943 to 1945. Okay, let me, because it does, okay, the fun doesn't end there, okay? Where is it? Where is it? There's like a quote from him, I think. Did he? Oh, here. Okay, here it is. So in 1943, Hunke volunteered to join the 14th Waffen Grenadier Division of the SS 1st Galician. Okay? During his time in SS Galicien, he was photographed training in Munich and Neuhammer. In 1944, Hunke was deployed into combat against the Red Army forces on the Eastern Front of World War II. Following the conclusion of World War II in Europe, Hunke immigrated to Canada and joined the Ukrainian-Canadian community. He remained active in Waffen SS veteran circles there and maintained a blog on the internet where, in the early 2010s, please, drum roll, please, you have to understand something. He's not even apologetic, okay? He described the years 1941 to 1943 as the happiest years of his life. In addition, he compared veterans of SS Galician to Jews, arguing that both groups were spread in worldwide diasporas from their homeland and could only return after several years of exile. Now, you might say, Hassan, this Wikipedia page was created yesterday. What the fuck do you mean? He didn't have a Wikipedia page. It don't matter. He had a blog. What do you mean? Like, this stuff is not hidden. Okay? This kind of stuff is not fucking hidden, okay? Especially, like, do you think this was all a big, like, secret? Like, no one was aware of it when he was a part of, like, the Waffen SS veteran circles? I think they could have also just asked him if he was a Nazi, and he'd probably enthusiastically agree. I just joined. What is this guy doing that made us talk about him now? This guy's 98. It's what he did during World War II that is important, okay? And the only reason why we're talking about it is because fucking dumbass Canadians gave him a standing ovation in Parliament not realizing for some weird fucking reason that, like, he fought against the Russians during World War II for Ukrainian independence, immediately signaled, like, for some reason, to the Canadians in Parliament, this did not signal, this did not alert any fucking, this did not ring any alarm bells in their minds that he might have been a Nazi. Speaking to the CBS 60 Minutes program in 1997, Canadian historian Irving Abella, who is currently a professor for Canadian Jewish history at York University, bluntly summed up the political climate at the time. One way of getting into post-war Canada, he said, was by showing the SS tattoo. This proved that you were an anti-communist. Now, it's like, it's a weird thing for people to come to terms with, people to, like, comprehend with today's standards, because everything you've learned in school is like, you're anti-Nazi, you're bad, Nazis are bad, right? Like, you learn that, and then you don't really recognize that there was a time and place where Western forces, specifically the United States of America especially, were aligning with Nazis, because the Nazis, the ones that didn't die or weren't executed in a military tribunal, weren't punished criminally, were the ones who were the most rugged anti-communists, and they were significantly more afraid of communism. Okay? So, like, the idea that this is, like, the idea that you consider this to be strange, right? Like, it's understandable if you're like, if you never thought about this sort of thing, you're like, how is this even possible? Which is why a lot of people are shocked when I tell them that once Germany was brought into NATO, the actual German Nazi generals were placed in charge of NATO. Like, actual fucking Nazis, and not even the ones that were like, oh, maybe we should kill Hitler. You know what I mean? Like, not even those Nazis. Like, straight up, the ones that were on board with Hitler were literally, instead of being executed, were fucking a part of NATO. Okay? This is 100 years of propaganda at play. That is there's a reason why you immediately have this fear. Maybe even in this community, when you hear about communism or the USSR or socialism or whatever, like, you don't immediately go, wait a minute, this is just like a simple disagreement of how the economy should be organized. And instead you think, pogroms, 100 million dead, 100 guerrillion dead. Like, that is all by design, okay? That is all by design. None of these things are shocking, at least to me. I think it's funny, especially because, like, I cover it all the fucking time, and it becomes hilarious when, like, people come in here and go, have you seen this Canadian Nazi shit? That's crazy. Canada police are investigating a vandalism of monument to Nazi troops as a hate crime. This was 3 years ago. The anti-hate network chair, I'm frankly dumbfounded, cenotaph commemorating Ukrainian SS division was graffitied. Yeah, that is a real sentence. Graffiti spray painted on a monument to Nazi soldiers in a small Canadian city is being investigated by the police as a hate crime, a move that has prompted disbelief among human rights advocates. Around 21st of June, the words Nazi War Monument were spray painted on a cenotaph commemorating soldiers on the 14th SS Division on Ontario Cemetery, the Ottawa Citizen reported. The cenotaph is located in Oakville St. Volodymyr Ukrainian Cemetery, roughly 40 kilometers, 25 miles from Toronto. Regional police have said they were treating the graffiti as a hate-motivated incident, but declined to release the wording of the message. The 14th Division was made up of Ukrainian nationals who joined the Nazis during the Second World War. Members of the division are believed to have murdered Polish women and children, as well as Jewish people. Because of their role in the Ukrainian nationalism, however, the soldiers have been commemorated by at least 2 diaspora communities in Canada. It is against the law in Canada to make a public statement which incites hatred against any identifiable group, which, according to the police in Ottawa, it seems Nazis are an identifiable group, so I guess it's a hate crime to be anti-Nazi. They went after a journalist for calling out that it was a different statue in his coverage of the vandalism of a different Nazi statue in Edmonton. Alberta journalist charged with mischief in vandalism of controversial statue. Duncan Kinney was charged after the Ukrainian military commander statue in Edmonton was defaced in 2021. Edmonton police have charged the editor of a left-wing Alberta news outlet with a mischief after a controversial statue of a Ukrainian military commander was defaced last year. He was charged with mischief under $5,000 in retaliation to an August 2021 incident that occurred at a Ukrainian complex in the area of... This is a different one. Chat, this is a different Nazi statue, okay? Last August, the words "actual Nazi" were written in red paint on the statue of Roman Shukoyevich. I fucked it up. I said it wrong. At the Ukrainian Youth Unity Complex. During the same week, a memorial in St. Michael's Cemetery near 138th Avenue and 82nd Street was also defaced with Nazi Monument 14th Waffen SS. Now, the problem is, it's not even defacing it. Like, the placard says the same thing in that situation that, like, the graffiti says. Like, this is an accurate label, okay? It's just basically a community note. Yeah, providing context. Shukovich's role in the military has fallen under increased scrutiny over his actions in leading the Ukrainian insurgent army during the Second World War and the deaths of tens of thousands of Belarusians, Jews, Poles, and Ukrainians. The Friends of the Simon Wiesenthal Center for Holocaust Studies has called the removal of the memorial, stating that they honor Nazi collaborators and war criminals because they are. Kinney is the executive director of Progress Alberta and the editor of the Progress Report. He was involved in an ongoing dispute with Edmonton police after his media accreditation was revoked. In an article about the issue, he wrote that the EPS were attempting to silence the Progress Report, which features reporting from Kinney as frequently critical of the police. I want to point to something important here. Okay? Oh, yeah. I mean, this is my favorite fucking dumbass video, and we'll cover it in a second. I want to point to something important here. None of this justifies Russia's actions in Ukraine. Okay? It doesn't. It literally does not. So, do not think that I'm like even remotely fucking justifying any of that shit. But it's fucking ridiculous to defend Nazis like this, okay? I know that a lot of people, instead of actually addressing the problem and being like, hey, maybe we should stop hyping up Ukrainian Nazi collaborators because they were anti-Russia, like so horny to be fucking anti-USSR, anti-communist, anti-socialist, that like we just end up aligning with Nazis regularly. Okay? But you know, there are genuine negative implications to doing such a thing. And it's wild that it has gone on for as long as it has. And we have covered it many, many times over. And as a matter of fact, a lot of people fucking yell at me all the time for talking about this. Even talking about Azov, which is ironic because I was talking about the fucking Azov brigade before Russia fucking did the full-blown, full-scale military invasion of Ukraine. And yet, a lot of these people that are hyper on the fuck Hassan train will, of course, always refuse to come to terms with this shit. What is this? Oh my God, the Nazis' granddaughter did the meme, Teresa Hunka. Good people don't spend their time harassing marginalized communities. Dedo is waiting in the reception hall for Trudeau and Zelensky. Wait, what? Yeah, she's pro LGBT and fucking you know what? Pro LGBT and sometimes maybe sometimes she just loves her grandpa. She loves her grandpa. She probably doesn't know. Come on, dog. She probably doesn't know. Bro, it's not like Dedo was fucking hiding it. What are we talking about? You think, okay, let me say something. You think Dedo doesn't have fucking, memorabilia? You think he doesn't have any memorabilia whatsoever? Bro, he wrote, I don't think he does know. Dog, he wrote a fucking blog, dude. In 2010, he was writing, he was a part of like a veterans community. The veterans, of the the SS Ukrainian veterans community in Canada. Are you kidding me? Who set up his blog, you think? I grew up in a UA community in Canada. Grandparents don't go around saying I was with the Nazis. Okay, did they have a blog that they wrote about their memories, for the record? You know, Combatants News, the internet's version of the Quarterly of the Association of Former Soldiers of Ukrainians in America, Brotherhood of the Soldiers of the First, UNA. If you think Big Homie doesn't have his jersey hanging up in his fucking closet, I don't know what to tell you. Okay. End of the third paragraph. My native village of Urman, it seemed to me then, was the most nationally conscious village in the district. The flame of national revival in the years between the two wars shone brightly over the village. The church and reading room, Prosvita, became the central engine of the national life of the village under the parental guidance of priests, fathers, Omelian Havrishko, Stefan Horodetsky. The village had a cooperative consumer store, a library corps, a Lug youth society, kindergarten, drama club. We all, Doris, knew that there was also an underground organization of nationalists in the village, OUN. But we did not know who belonged to it, but we imagined all the older boys and some girls must enter there because they often whispered to each other. I'm 14 years old, September 19, end of third paragraph. Oh, this one. We not only went to her barefoot, but stepped on her barefoot out of a sense of holiness and boundless pride. The spirit of this mountain, like some strange radiation, permeated my soul and all my senses. I also had a native hero of whom I was very proud of. This is my father's older brother, Gunka, who fought in the ranks of the SSS. Wait, what do you want me to fucking read from the third? This is the article where he says it was the best years of his life. This is the third paragraph. I read it. RVV 9921, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. The Polish army and the civilian population are fleeing along the road in the direction of Berezan in continuous roll, and the German planes are catching up with them from time to time. Every day we impatiently looked in the direction of the Pomorians with the hope that those mystical German knights who give such bullets to the hated cowards would appear. One day, instead of them, a column of horsemen with red stars on their caps arrived from Berezan. This was the first demonstration of Father Stalin's guardianship over us, the first echelons of enemies of the people to Siberia. More of the ones that followed. The only thing the OUN dogs and the Nazis disagreed about was Ukrainian independence. Yeah, that the other part about this, the hilarious part of the hilarity of this story is that, like, I don't even think Nazis were interested in giving Ukraine any kind of fucking nationalist independence anyway. So, like, they ended up doing it for the love of the game, okay? Like, that's the wild part about this story, is that they were just like they weren't even gonna get it. They were just fucking rolling against their own fucking neighbors and against their own kin that were fighting under the banner of the USSR against Nazis for the love of the game, okay? Against Polish people, against Jews in Ukraine. He calls Hitler the liberator. The new liberator of the Ukrainian people, Führer Hitler, reigned over the Berezansk land. Portraits of Hitler in a long overcoat and raised cowl, covering his menacing face with a small, if artificially attached, whiskers under a sharp nose, and with the inscription Hitler Liberator hung in each classes, the Führer immediately revealed his plans for Ukraine, liquidating the provisional Ukrainian government in Lviv and imprisoning Ukrainian leaders in concentration camps. A new wave of arrests followed. It was easier to confront the new enemy because A, he was easy to recognize, B, spoke a foreign language to us, and C, he did not permeate our society with sexos as the Muscovite did. By the way, you know what's really funny about this? Okay, he says liberator in air quotes, and then he still ended up fucking fighting alongside him. I just turned 16, and the next 2 years were the happiest years of my life. I had no idea that what I experienced in those 2 years would fill me with love for my native city in such a way that it would be enough for me for the rest of my life. I didn't know then that dreams about those 2 years, about the company of charming girls, about carelessly cheerful friends, about fragrant evenings in the luxurious castle parks, and walks around the city would help me get through the anxious times of the following years. He's talking about World War II. That the memories of the Berezansk Gymnasium in the old town hall with its professors and increasingly cheerful and noisy students will support my heart and soul in a foreign land in the coming decades. I was so happy. Oh, man. Many students of the Berezansk Gymnasium died a heroic death in the ranks of the UPA in the Galichnya division. I do not want the reader to understand that my entire generation was ideologically motivated and spiritually conscious. In a bag of healthy apples, there are also rotten ones. It will depend on the relationship between those two qualities of apples in the course of a given generation. There were some bad apples in the division, you know. But ultimately, you know, a couple bad apples don't spoil the entire Nazi bunch. That's the other funny part about this is that, like, the fucking collaborators were also imprisoned by the Nazis themselves in many instances too, which is, you know, should have given you an indication. Or, I don't know, like, everything they said about Slavs not being white or a part of the in-group should have given you the indication that, like, maybe you shouldn't collaborate with those guys because they're not going to save you. But no, I'm telling you, they did it for the love of the game, dog. That's it. You can't be that fucking cucked. Oh, anyway. Yeah, those friends of the UPA killed 50 to 100K Polish civilians. That is the other part of this story that is, like, also insane to me, which is that, like, you know, the current Polish perspective, obviously, due to their anti-USSR, anti-communist sentiment, is literally that, like, it's fine. You know what I mean? They're, like, aligned with some of the forces and that massacred them. You know what I mean? Historically. Not that long ago, really, when you think about it. He wondered why the Jews were running from a civilized nation like the Germans. He's a fucking pig dog. Yeah, I mean, he was a Nazi. But I guess, yeah, his best years coincided with the worst pogroms, by the way. But it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's both sides. Both sides need to be thought about.
And I was going to say he's in the gallery, but I think you beat me to that. But I'm very proud to say that he is from North Bay and from my riding of Nipissing Temiskaming.
Yeah, he's from his riding, brother. North Bay, represent.
He's a Ukrainian hero, a Canadian hero, and we thank him for all his service. Thank you.
He said thank you for your service fighting. Thank you for your service in the Nazi brigade. Zelensky joins the Canadian Parliament's ovation to a 98-year-old veteran who fought with Nazis. The man was a part of the SS Galichina, a unit whose history has been whitewashed by veterans groups in the West. The Canadian Parliament gave a standing ovation to Friday. Dude, listen. This is the exact one-to-one comparison to the Confederacy, okay? If you let this kind of propaganda, if you give it even a little bit of fucking life, if you give it even a little bit of existence, they will utilize every avenue they can, including the very much alive and robust anti-communist existence in places like Canada, in places like America, okay? They will use that as an avenue. They will use that as an opportunity to thrive. It's so stupid. Anyway, yeah, he was, the Canadian Parliament gave a standing ovation on Friday to a 98-year-old immigrant from Ukraine who fought in a Third Reich military formation accused of war crimes. Polish media outlet reported my tweets. There is complete blackout of this epic scandal in mainstream Western media, even though my research-based Twitter threads concerning the issue have already 2 million views. It's changing now. Now people are actually covering it a little bit. Actually, are they covering it? I only saw this pop off on Twitter. Like, I know it's like a big deal in Canada, and Justin Trudeau tried to apologize for it or whatever, but also here is
on our lives, on our world, will be so much greater if Putin wins this war that we will and have to stand every single day until Ukraine wins this war.
It's so funny seeing Justin Trudeau try to do like aggressive, like take an aggressive stance. You know what I mean? It's like, bro, shut the fuck up, bitch. Like, shut the fuck up. Don't try to do that. What an incredible article. Kremlin says Canadian recognition of veteran from Nazi unit is outrageous. Like, what are we doing? Is this pro Kremlin? Like, what's happening? Like, what's my takeaway here? Is my takeaway supposed to be, honestly, I guess we got to hand it to the Kremlin here? Like, is that what we're doing? Or is the takeaway, well, oh, if the Kremlin said it, then it must actually be bad? Politico. Nazi-linked veteran received ovation during Zelensky's Canada visit. Readers out of context. Yaroslav Hunka was not just linked to the Nazis. He was literally part of the German Nazi military serving as a Waffen-SS soldier. This group was declared a criminal organization by the International Military Tribunal in Nuremberg in 1946. Anyway. So this further proves your point about stopping this propaganda, that there's a good reason that Germany doesn't let the Nazi shit be spread around under the penalty of law. And even in Germany, you can't override through censorship. You cannot override the genuine reactionary interest that comes from the ground when the material conditions are worsening. Okay? And the perfect example of this is that the AFD is rising to prominence. Do you get it? The AFD is pro-Nazi as you can be, while simultaneously not saying that you are actually a literal Nazi, because there are rules around that sort of thing. So, you know, it's just, the reason why I wanted to give you this background, however, is that because, like, this doesn't happen overnight. Like, this didn't sneak in, okay? This did not actually randomly happen overnight. This has been a deliberate, not dissimilar to the Daughters of the Confederacy style, misinformation and whitewashing operation that's totally prescient, that took advantage of the anti-communist sentiment during the Cold War in Canada, in the immediate aftermath of World War II, that they took advantage of and were able to gain prominence, and were even able to utilize, as I showed you, the police. Like, they, in two separate instances, one, they investigated someone defacing a Nazi memorial as a fucking hate crime, which they dropped later, okay? And two, they literally charged a fucking progressive journalist with inciting vandalism when another one of the Nazi memorials that he wrote about was vandalized. And the vandalism wasn't even like a real vandalism. It was just simply telling you that at the top of the hour there's a 3-minute ad break. Okay? Anyway, I love when dumbass Canadian right-wingers are like, watching Justin Fidel squirm as he tries to justify his Canadian Parliament standing ovation in celebration of an actual Nazi is mouth-wateringly delicious. What's delicious is not being hit with the top-of-the-hour ad break. And the only way to avoid the top-of-the-hour ad break is by subscribing for $5 for free with the Twitch Prime. Connect your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account where you get one free Prime subscription a month. Here's the 3-minute ad break now. King Leopold Blato, thank you for the 20 gifted subs, allowing 20 people to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour.
Upsetting that this happened. The speaker has acknowledged his mistake and has apologized. But this is something that is deeply embarrassing to the Parliament of Canada and, by extension, to all Canadians.
I mean, no, it's not. It's not. If that was the case, then you would have taken down the Nazi monuments all over the place in fucking Canada, which they exist, very much so. And new ones are being built all the fucking time, too. Because if you don't fucking nip it in the bud, if you do not nip it in the bud, these guys, they're very ideologically motivated. They're very ideologically driven. They will do anything and everything they can to fucking defend Nazi principles. Okay? For non-Jewish Ukrainians, Stalin was a greater danger to their survival than Hitler. Keeping Stalin out was a matter of life and death for them. When Stalin wins, sure enough, he brutally murders Ukrainians. Stalin's crimes against humanity outnumber Hitler's. Yeah. There you go. This is, you can say stuff like this without people going, dude, what the fuck are you saying right now? Okay? What the absolute fuck are you saying right now? Are you insane? You can only get away with this without people immediately going, what are you even fucking saying? Because of Red Scare propaganda. Like, this is nothing more than Holocaust revisionism at that point. Okay? And you will get sucked into it. Okay? If you don't really think about it and you hear it from all different avenues, you will 100% agree with it. Okay? That's why, while I regularly do say that, Stalin's leadership was fraught with controversy and plenty of awful things happened, plenty of things that should not have happened, some deliberate cruelty, some miscalculations. Ultimately, the one thing that Stalin was very good at was, one, robbing banks in his early age. That was very cool. Okay, victimless crime. And two, killing Nazis. Like, that's it. These guys can't even do that. They can't even fucking, like, they have to be like, no, Stalin is worse than Hitler. And when you do that, when you say fucking psychotic shit like that, you are doing Holocaust revisionism. Okay? You're doing Holocaust revisionism. We're seeing Weimar era fascist conditions manifesting before our eyes, and it's scary to see people just ignoring, forgetting, / apologizing for Nazis. Yes. He also thinks firebombing Germany is just like the Holocaust. Wait, what? Canada lit hundreds of thousands of humans, children, mothers, civilians on fire in Dresden. Should every RCAF crew member serving in the Lancasters, like my grandfather, be brandished a war criminal? I think there's very few still alive. Should we prosecute pilots and navigators? That's crazy. If you think that this is a good fucking comparison, then first of all, the bombing of Dresden is relatively, it's somewhat controversial. It's not as black and white in the same way as like fucking being a part of the SS is. Okay, now, I mean, even including people like Howard Zinn, who were directly a part of the U.S. Air Force at the time in World War II, like this was his radicalizing moment. Okay. Can you honestly say SS war crimes are worse than that? We burned them alive in an entire city. You can say that. Okay? You can say that. Yes, you can say that. Thank you for asking that question, because even then, yes, if one could be controversial, okay, if one can be considered controversial in the midst of like an ongoing full-scale state-on-state war, the other is like directly taking up arms against your fucking neighbors and killing them. So yeah, no, that one is worse. Yeah.
Damn, this guy's good.